Let's talk about the mysterious world of candy flipping, mixing ecstasy with LSD. Candy flipping is mixing acid, so LSD, with Molly ecstasy. And while this is more for the more experienced users, I would not advise it at all for beginning users of drugs. Anyways, this is something that you really have to take into consideration. So here a little disclaimer. I do not advise in any of my drug videos to take anything, but I would like to give you some insight on the things that are out there. Which one do you use first? Well, that's easy. That's LSD. This is due to the fact that LSD takes longer. You're gonna be quite a while busy with it, around 12 hours or maybe even a little bit longer. LSD is a psychoactive drug. There are other videos on my channel that explain that a bit more. And then you have Molly, ecstasy, MDMA, which depending on how you use it, you can sniff it of course. I would not necessarily advise that because it can hurt your nostrils. And depending on if you take it over your nose, it takes around 4 hours. If you swallow a pill or you take some MDMA, then normally that takes around 6 hours. So yes, you first start off with LSD because it takes longer, and then depending on how much you use, so you have to be careful, and also that's why I say it's a bit more for the experienced user. If you take too much LSD, for example, then you should always question, should you do this, of course. So take that into account. Dosing is a very important thing if you are going to do this. The same thing with ecstasy, don't pop a whole pill, but take into account in how much you would like to take, so that you are having a pleasant experience. So what are the effects of mixing them? Well, that really depends. Their effects and their intensity can be different every time that you take them, even if you are taking the same dose, and that's definitely true. It depends also on how you are on that day. How well did you take care of yourself the days before? For example, I know that with my experience, if I would sleep well the days before, if I would eat well the days before, my LSD trips, but also my ecstasy trips would also be a lot nicer. People who have done it, of course, paint every time a different picture. Some say you get an experience that equal parts of both substances comes out. LSD, the trippy, psychoactive drug, of course, or ecstasy, which makes you really happy. The most common effects of LSD, of course, are euphoria, hallucinations. This includes seeing, hearing, and smelling things that aren't real, which, of course, is always fun. Or at least if you like it, take that into account. A weird sense of time and environment. So for example, I always remember the one thing that I was sitting in Mauer Park in Berlin, and there's a lot of lavendel standing there. I was looking at the lavendel, then I turned my head away, and then all of a sudden the whole Mauer Park was standing in lavendel. You can have intensified feelings. That's why I say really make sure that if you are going to use drugs, that you do it on a good day. Especially, hey, if you have a shitty day and then you're going to take any of these two drugs, it can multiply that feeling, and then you're going to have a shitty time. So please take that into account. You can have mood swings. You can, now we go a bit on the worst side of the effects of LSD. You can get paranoia if you're not understanding what's happening in your environment. You're maybe not so experienced with it. If you are all of a sudden seeing other things that are actually there, or you're changing your head around and all of a sudden there is something there that you didn't see before, then that might lead to some paranoia or to some confusion. That's totally normal. If you're not so experienced with it, you can also experience fear. If you are not so experienced with LSD and you're not so used to letting go of control, then LSD might be a bit too intense for people as well. Because, hey, if you're all of a sudden not in control, and then I don't necessarily mean that you can't move or that you are not really in control, but if you are not experienced with just letting things happen, then it might be a hard trip for you. And of course, then you have on the other side, then you have ecstasy. Well, feelings of closeness and affection. That's always for me. Oh, I always love to be around my friends on ecstasy, hugging them, being chilled with them. That's something really nice. Increased empathy. That's the same thing for LSD. You can have a different view of things. You can understand things better. Also here you can have an elevated mood and energy. Of course, especially ecstasy is known for giving you extra energy. Also LSD, if I say that from my own experience. An increased sensitivity to touch. Well, there is the hugging part that I always like, especially with good friends. That's always nice. Your visuals might change. Yeah, that is also pretty normal. I remember one of the first times that I took it, I was walking around in Berlin, and in the first 2 hours or something, I didn't really notice how high I was, or at least it didn't kick in that much. And then I went with a friend to a friend's place, then we went to get some food outside, and all of a sudden I walked outside and it just hit me in that I was pretty high. And I remember there were standing like cleaners for the streets, and they had this orange suits on, and they were so bright, they were really standing out. And the same thing for sound, that can be different. And yeah, you can have muscle cramping, especially if you take too much. You can also, well, have teeth cleansing, or you can chew. You can get it that it's a bit chilly, then it's warm, and so that's also something that's definitely for both of the drugs that can happen. An increased body temperature. Well, of course, if your body temperature goes up and down a little bit, it's gonna be chilly, then it's gonna be warm, and yeah, that's basically how it works. And you also can get nausea, and that's why I always say for myself as well, I've never really just taken one whole ecstasy pill in once. Of course, I'm not the tallest person, so I always took that into account. But also, I don't want to overdo it. I always want to have a little bit sense of control, or at least not pushing myself too far from that perspective. And yeah, if you take too much, then of course puking is always a nice thing, at least with ecstasy. If I would take too much, my body would most likely just be within 15-20 minutes like, okay, no, get it out of there. How long does this thing last? Well, that's around, as I said, LSD kicks in within 20 to 90 minutes of taking it, and its effects can last 12 hours or sometimes even longer. Ecstasy, which is normally taken after a few hours of taking the LSD, typically kicks in within 20 to 45, 60 minutes. And that lasts from 3 to 6 hours, especially as I explained, and depends on how you take it. Then we, of course, say it's not also always fun. There is also a calm down. So both LSD and ecstasy can give a different kind of calm down. For me, LSD is normally the day after. I'm really into just chilled mood. I really enjoy that. That is due to my own experience. The day after, I always sort of go through what happened the day before, especially because normally I am not a lot in my head, but I think about certain things and it's a whole experience. So I try to evaluate on that. Ecstasy, on the other hand, has for me always more the effect of really giving me a burn down the day after, as if I have been drinking for a good night and became drunk. Then the day after I had a hangover. Normally I would say that ecstasy normally hits a bit later in the way that it gives you a calm down that LSD does. But take into account that you can have trouble concentrating. You might not sleep that well. You might have a decreased appetite, of course. Especially ecstasy is quite heavy on the stomach as well. Depending on how you are as a person, you also can be irritable. You used up all your happy hormones, so of course you're gonna notice that the days after. That's why I also always say, like, don't take ecstasy too often. Same thing for LSD, don't take it too often, because, well, of course, you're using up certain hormones and they need time to recover again. Of course, there are risks to candy flipping due to the increase of the potency of the MDMA. It can also give you a greater risk on having a negative experience. And potentially, if you really do it wrong, it can have dangerous effects. So we first take into account hydration issues that can be caused. Due to the fact that LSD enhances the effects of MDMA, this can also increase the risk of dehydration. So you definitely need to make sure that you drink. Just take into account that you don't drink too much, otherwise you go into the region of water poisoning. But don't forget to drink because, well, you're sweating a lot, and take that into account. A bad trip is always with drugs something that can happen. I myself never really had the experience of a bad trip, but I know more than enough friends that have that experience of with drugs. In my account, it mostly comes down to the fact that people are taking too much for the experience level that they have. So please take into account, and especially with candy flipping, as I mentioned before, if you don't have that much experience, then watch out with it. Don't want to leave you hanging in this video. Please take some safety tips that I have for you. If you are able to, and in the Netherlands I know that you have places where you can go with your drugs, then you can test your drugs. That's always a good thing, especially in my opinion with ecstasy, but also with LSD. Then the next tip is start low, go slow. As I mentioned before, if you are not so used to either candy flipping or with one of the two drugs, in my opinion, if you are not experienced with either one of the two drugs, don't ever do this. Don't ever think about doing this yet, because all drugs, and especially LSD, come down to experience and how you are going to enjoy it. If you can have someone to trip sit you, easy as that, so they can watch you if everything is fine. They can also entertain you or bring you drinks and etc. So that's always nice. And pick a nice environment for you to do this, because hey, also with LSD I like nature. Of course I also like clubbing, bit more for the experienced ones, if you even want to do that when you're on acid, because I know a lot of people always called me crazy for doing so, which is fine. But it always comes down to personal preference in how you are gonna enjoy your trip. So yeah, my own experience with candy flipping is I always liked it, to be honest. I never really had a bad experience with it. And I do want to press anyone on the heart that it doesn't happen to me, that I don't have a bad experience. Doesn't mean that for everyone it's gonna be a nice experience. I have a little bit more of experience with drugs even before. Also separately with LSD I had quite some experience, and I had with ecstasy quite some experience before I even combined the two. But the bottom line is just easy. If you aren't experienced with both of them, don't do it. It can definitely be fun, but it can also amplify the feelings that you have on that day. So take that into account. Yeah, if you are not feeling comfortable in a certain environment, change your environment. And if you are not able to have a nice environment around you, just be safe and don't do it. It can also definitely make an LSD trip feel longer and more intense. Of course, that's normal because you're putting extra drugs in there, which is gonna amplify the feeling that you have. And this might not always be a good thing. If you have to work the next day and you're gonna do something like this the day before, take that into account. That's why in Berlin at least, I always had my Monday off. My little video about candy flipping. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this topic, just drop them down in the comments and I will be happy to react to them. And then from my side, there is nothing else to say than big hug, much love, and then I see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.